Chapter 20 TTFN. "Welcome back, Captain," Skip said. Jax, Naomi, and Governor Singh were filing up through the embarkation room. Baxter took up a position at the bottom of the ramp. "Let's get ready to go," Jax said, moving through the common deck to the quarters he was currently sharing with Jeffrey. He mumbled something about changing his clothes as he disappeared from view. Jeffrey had been sitting in the large chair in the lounge space when the others arrived. He was up and out of the chair the moment the ship's SI notified him of their arrival in the landing bay. He was hovering next to Governor Singh until she swatted at him, driving him to the dining table. Rudy rolled over to Naomi. "Glad that all went according to plan." The governor looked over. "There was a plan?" She gestured to Jeffrey as she dropped into the sofa. "Jeffrey, I need a drink, whatever the stiffest thing Jackson has." Jeffrey stood but stopped when Naomi said, "He keeps the strong stuff here." She walked over to a bookshelf set against the bulkhead, opposite the large entertainment display. 3 of the books were fake, revealing 2 bottles, both whiskey. The governor grinned. "I'm glad not everything I taught him was for naught." "Oh, come on, Auntie," Jack said, emerging from the short corridor that led to the crew and guest quarters. "I learned a ton from you, not least of which is an appreciation for alcohol." He grinned. He had changed into his customary shipboard uniform of loose-fitting denim pants and T-shirt with a logo no one else recognized. Their time locked up had been made even more uncomfortable by his being dressed for the auction in tight-fitting trousers and a nice shirt. He moved to the kitchenette, opening one of the high cabinets, removing 4 tumblers. Setting all 4 on the coffee table in front of the sofa, he took the bottle from Naomi. "Skip, go ahead and get the pre-flights started, please." "Copy that, Captain," the ship's SI replied. Rudy bobbed his metal fist, nodding. He rolled to the staircase and shot up the center to the bridge above. Once Jax had poured the drinks, he distributed the glasses. Holding his own up, he said, "To things never going according to plan." Everyone took a sip. After coughing, Jeffrey said, "That doesn't seem like a thing you would toast to." Jax grinned. "You just haven't been around us long enough." He made a gesture to himself and Naomi. Jeffrey took another sip, shuddering. "No offense, Jackson, but I hope to never, ever, ever travel with you again." "That's fair," Jack said. "Captain, we've got clearance to depart," Skip announced. Jack stood. "On my way." From below, the sound of Baxter coming up the ramp echoed. "We're sealed up," Skip announced. They never learn. The Osprey slid out of the domed landing bay into space. Local space was no less busy than when they had arrived. Dozens of massive freighters jockeyed for position to dock and load or unload. The biggest difference that time was the Lightfoot-class corvette docked at one of the longer docking arms. Jax watched the busy local space, expertly moving the Osprey out of the way of vessels larger and smaller. "Someone just scanned us," Skip announced. Jack tensed. "Who?" "Working on it." Jax looked over his shoulder. "Get a course plotted for home." Rudy bobbed his fist. "On it." "Light freighter sliding in behind us," Skip announced. "No ident being broadcast." "One guess," Jax groused. He slapped the communication console, opening a channel. "I'll say this once. Don't do anything stupid." He muted the channel. "Skip, just in case, see if you can reach our Imperial friends." He adjusted their course, trying his best to make it look like he was simply trying to avoid a large bulk freighter, instead of trying to keep the Osprey and their new friend in weapons range of the Imperial corvette. The communications console blinked. He pressed a button. One of the overhead monitors came to life. It was one of the Crimson Orchid goons he had seen at Leonard's. "You really have a death wish, don't you?" the man said. He continued, "You could have been free and clear of us. We'd be off your back, and you could go back to hauling grain or whatever you do." Jax grinned. "No, not really. I'm hoping to live a long life and to die when medical science has done everything humanly possible to extend my life. I've even thought about having my head preserved in a jar, but then I don't know if I could live without sex." He grunted. I mean, what kind of life would that be? No physical pleasure? Shut up! The man on the screen shouted. An icon appeared on the screen, a microphone with a red slash through it. Skip had muted their side, then said, He's targeting us. Jax nodded as the mute icon vanished. You know, it'd be highly insane to attack me here. I mean, sure, Columbiana normally wouldn't care, as long as you didn't hit the station. But you know, right about now, all your guys and all your competitors' guys are being rounded up by shock troopers. I'm kind of in the good graces of the station governor. Jax beamed. Plus, you know, that Imperial Corvette. You're just space trash, nothing more, the man retorted. That's just mean, Jax replied. The mute icon appeared again. The Pulaski said, and I quote, You are on your own, Skip said. The mute icon vanished. Jax did his best to mask his annoyance as he adjusted their course again, this time angling away from the station and as much traffic as he could. The man said, You could have just handed it over, cleared your debt to us, but no, you had to be cute. As the Osprey cleared the nearest inbound bulk freighter, Jax consulted the navigation display. More or less open space for a few 100,000 kilometers, not counting the handful of well-armed asteroids in the vicinity. He moved as inconspicuously as possible, arming the ship's weapons systems. On the screen, the criminal leaned forward, filling the screen with his wicked smile. Goodbye, Mr. Caruso. Mr. Ichiko sends his regards. He is firing, Skip announced, not bothering to mute the channel. Jax laughed, pulling the ship into a tight corkscrew as a missile flew past. Here's the thing. He brought the Osprey into a turn in the opposite direction, using the maneuvering thrusters to slide the ship laterally as it turned wide, bringing the nose of the much smaller ship to bear on the modified freighter. You're in a freighter. A well-armed one, pretty thick armor, too, I'm sure. On his primary flight display, he watched as the targeting computer went to work, lining up the powerful plasma cannon, mounted amidships on the ventral section of the ship, just aft of the boarding ramp. It had a limited firing arc, requiring the Valerian co-op infiltrator to be above its target. But, Jack said, I've got this. He squeezed the trigger on his flight control as the rectangle on his main display turned green. A purple line appeared between the two ships, causing Jax to squint until the transparent portion of the bridge turned dark. The freighter immediately listed to the side, atmosphere venting from a 5-meter-long cut in the ship's side. The damage was still glowing white as the escaping atmosphere pulled a body through the hole. On the small communication screen, the Crimson Orchid man was shouting orders at someone, red lights around him strobing. He looked back at the camera, scowling. Jax slapped the communication console to close the channel, then lined up another shot as the Osprey sailed past the stricken freighter. A turret on the dorsal of the ship tracked the smaller craft, firing blaster bolts that splashed against the shields, rocking the much smaller ship. Jax's own turret came around, lining up on the freighter. The moment before the targeting rectangle was going to turn green, a nearby asteroid opened fire with a single railgun shot that vaporized the freighter. Governor Rostova says you're welcome, Skip announced. Jax adjusted their course to clear the remaining asteroids. He looked over his shoulder. We good? Course plotted. Wormhole generator is online, Rudy replied. Jax smiled as he reached for the blinking button that would open the rift in space-time directly ahead. The green and purple vortex opened, and the Osprey leapt into it. Welcome home. The rest of the trip was uneventful. The new alluvial damper for the wormhole generator worked without issue. Jeffrey and Naomi bonded over a trilogy of movies that Jax had forgotten were even in his archive. Something about sharks in a hurricane or something. He only made it through half of the first one, before finding something to read in the cabin he and Jeffrey were sharing. It was beyond Jax how someone thought making more than one was a good idea. He spent the trip going through the files they had stolen, deleting most of them. Most of the data they had stolen was far too dangerous in anyone's hands, especially anyone Jax would likely sell it to. There were a few gems that he was hopeful could fetch a good price, or even benefit him directly as upgrades to the Osprey. As they neared Kelso Station, Governor Singh joined him on the bridge while Naomi, Baxter, and Jeffrey wrestled with the mountain of luggage she had brought along. "I'm sure you're excited to get your quarters back," she said, putting a withered brown hand on his shoulder. He grunted. "Yeah, your boy Jeffrey has some seriously weird dreams." He tapped the console. "Nightmares might be more accurate. So much screaming." He looked over his shoulder. "I bet you'll be glad to be home." She nodded. "You have no idea. Apparently there was a bit of a labor issue in engineering, and my lieutenant promised everyone additional holidays and hazard pay." She shook her head. "Idiot. I might have to promote Jeffrey. He's far more competent than that boob, Robert." The large outer door of the Caruso family mechanical bay slid open, orange lights strobing. Jax let out a sigh of relief. It wasn't much, but everything in that bay was his, and it was home. The Osprey touched down with a clang. Jax flipped switches, powering down the reactor and engaging the standby routines. He looked at his aunt. "That was quite the adventure." She smiled. "Yeah, it was. I never want to do that again." Jax laughed, standing up. "Can't argue. I've had more than enough of New Terra and the Empire for a bit." "Good, because I was serious when I grounded you," the small Indian woman said, walking to the staircase. Jax froze, watching her vanish down to the common deck below. He turned to Rudy, who spun his squat cylindrical head so that his optic sensors were facing away from Jax. He rushed to the staircase. "Auntie, wait!" Governor Singh joined Jeffrey and Naomi as Jax came down. "You can't be serious. I'm a grown-ass man. You can't ground me." He looked at the others for support. Naomi made a deliberate show of looking at her fingernails. Jeffrey held both hands up and pointed to the small woman next to him. "She signs my paycheck. Sorry, man." Jax's face fell. "Auntie?" She smiled. "Sorry, Jackson. Maybe sometime not off gallivanting around the sector will give you time to think about your actions and how you can be more responsible." Naomi tapped Jeffrey, and they both grabbed suitcases and moved to the staircase. Baxter, who until then had been standing quietly near the hatch to the ship's head, said nothing, but grabbed several suitcases and followed the other two humans down to the cargo deck. Below, Jax could hear Naomi, Jeffrey, and Baxter working their way further down to the embarkation room and the already deployed boarding ramp. Governor Singh pointed to some more bags. "Grab those, dear." She made for the stairs. Jax grabbed the bags. "Auntie, you make it sound like I'm out racing or, I don't know, something dumb like that." He stumbled on the last step and nearly fell on the small woman in front of him. Catching himself and his breath, he continued, "Naomi and I were out trying to make a living. Things cost money, you know that." As Governor Singh stepped off the boarding ramp onto the deck of Kelso Station, she inhaled deeply. She watched Jax come down the ramp. "That may be, but this little adventure has shown me how you take far too many risks. Not just with your life, but others' lives, mine in particular." She poked him in the stomach. "You could have just lounged around the pool while Jeffrey and I were busy. Instead, you robbed the Emperor, destroyed public property, started a cross-sector chase, and nearly got Columbiana Station sanctioned or worse." She headed off toward the hatch out of the mechanical bay. Jax groaned. "Allegedly?" When he saw her face, he added, "That wasn't even my idea." She clucked. "Oh, if someone said you should walk out an airlock without an EVA suit, would you?" "Of course not." "Well then, I guess a month staying here on Kelso will give you ample time to reflect. Maybe take up yoga." Jeffrey and Naomi had moved out of the way as the two argued. The governor's assistant leaned over. "You may need to find a new partner, at least for a while." Naomi groaned. "I haven't even finished breaking this one in." She rubbed her chin. "Maybe those Delfino brothers need a hand for a bit." "I heard that." Jax shouted in from ahead of them. The hatch opened before Governor Singh arrived. Lewis from Customs walked in. He beamed. "Well, hi there, Governor Singh. Welcome home." He dipped his head. She smiled warmly. "Thank you, Lewis." She slowed down. "When you're done with your inspection, please issue a 1-month lockdown on the Osprey. She doesn't leave the station without my express authorization." Lewis's eyes bugged out. Okay, ma'am." He turned to Jax and shrugged helplessly. He mouthed, "What did you do?" Jax scowled and turned away. The governor walked into the corridor, motioning Jeffrey to join her. She looked at Jax. "It's only 30 days, dear. I'm sure it won't kill you." She turned away, then turned back. "Don't forget to have Baxter deliver my bags to my quarters." She did not wait for any reply. She turned and vanished into the corridor. Lewis rocked on his heels, looking at Jax, then Naomi, then the ceiling. Finally he turned to the two of them. "So," he tapped the tablet in his hand with the index finger of his other hand. "How was New Terra?" Jax sighed. "Fine." He looked at Naomi. "At least we got coffee." His business partner looked at him and shrugged. "Did you get some?" "I was busy not dying." Jax looked at the ceiling of the large hangar space. "Kill me now." He looked at Naomi. "No coffee." She shrugged, patted his shoulder, and headed towards the hatch his aunt had just exited through. "Wonder if Tony is busy," he mumbled. "So, nothing to declare, then?" Lewis pressed. The end. You've been listening to Side Hustle Tango, Book 2 of The Grand Human Empire, by John Wilker. Narrated by Adam Verner. Copyright 2021, by John Wilker. Production copyright 2024, by John Wilker.